Hey friends, it's Cassie and welcome back for another Heffy Doodle video. Today we're going to be making some ocean themed cards using the Oceans of Love stamps and dies. I love these, they're so cute. It's my first time using them. And we're also going to be using the first snow stencil. I know, snow, but we're not making snow. We also have the alcohol marker friendly cardstock along with some card bases and some Oreo cardstock. So let's take some of that alcohol marker friendly cardstock, put that into our MISTI, and then I'm going to pull out all of the images that I plan to use, ink those up with some ink on 3 blackout ink, and then I'm going to stamp that down. I'm going to stamp it a couple times because I want to make sure that I get a good crisp image, and I'm going to turn the paper and stamp it again. And then I'm even going to take some of the smaller elements and stamp those out a bunch of times. Now I say alcohol marker friendly cardstock because that's exactly what it is. I'm going to be using my alcohol markers. These are Copics, and I'll put the colors up on the screen. If I go a little too fast for you, you can pause that if you'd like. So I'm going to start with our little shark, and I'm going to color the other shark the same way, so I won't show you all of that coloring, but I will show you all the little pieces. How I like to color is I like to start with my lightest color first. And there are lots of different ways that a person can color with alcohol markers. I like to put down a light wash first because it kind of wets the paper. And I think that helps, at least for me, for those alcohol inks to blend a little bit easier. Now, again, as I said, there are other ways to do it. I know there are lots of folks that like to color darkest to lightest, but I find that I use a lot more ink when I do it that way. And this way I can kind of conserve some of that. Now, I will use a little bit more of my lighter inks when I do it this way, but that's okay. That's where if I've got to get a refill, those are the ones I tend to focus on, are those lighter colors. So I'm moving on to my narwhal. Same process, using a lighter color first, and then I'll come in with my mid-tone. And you'll notice I also put a few dots. I did that on my shark. I'm going to do it on my narwhal, and I'll even do it on the little manta ray, or no, he's not a manta ray. Is he a stingray? I think he's the stingray. And then, and I'm just using a stippling effect, which means I'm holding that marker perpendicular to the paper and just kind of pouncing up and down and getting different sizes of dots. And then I'll come in and do it with another color as well, just to kind of add a little bit of variation in there. Then I'll move on to my jellyfish. You'll notice I'm using a little bit more subdued colors. They're not super, super bright. And the reason for that is I wanted these cards to be fairly gender neutral. I don't know about you, but sometimes that is a struggle for me. So I just focused on a little bit more subdued colors. Still, we're using lots of color on each one, but they're not like really bright and in your face. And so then I'll move on to our little stingray, and he's going to be a gray. And I'm going to make 4 cards. So in the end, we will end up having 4 cards. I know this is a lot of images for 4 cards, but I also like to decorate the insides. So that's where we went with that. I'm only using 2 colors on this little guy. We used the W4 and the W6, and I can blend out with that W4. And then we'll move on to coloring our little stars. These are super easy to color. Sometimes with those smaller images, you don't need to use a 3-color blend. 2 is usually plenty. And so don't panic if you don't have a lot of markers. This is just a small little image that is, like I said, great for using a couple colors if you wanted. Then we'll move on to some of our kelp. I'm using different colors for both. So this one will be an orange. And I'll color all those the same. You'll notice that I also don't always go right to the edge when I'm coloring. That's because I can come back in with that lighter color and blend that out a little bit better, especially with the reds. I've noticed with the reds, even though I'm not using reds today, reds and pinks, if I go all the way to the edge, sometimes that pink for some reason will blend. It'll bleed outside of the image, so I try to be a little bit careful there. Moving on to this one, I'll use these types of greens. I'm going to do that for all of them, but I'll just show you the one. And it's not a super big contrast between the 2 colors that I chose. And then I'll use the same color for that little clamshell. Our next thing that we have to do is match up all of the matching dies, tack those down with a little bit of washi tape, and run that through our Heffy Doodle mini die cutting machine, which you all know, if you watch me, I love this machine. It comes out for pretty much every card I make. Because if I don't have to use my big machine, I like to use my little machine. And this one is fabulous for that because a lot of different dies can go through it. Now we have our card bases, which measure 4¼ by 11½ inches. I'm going to take our first snow stencil and we're going to use it for our seafloor. So I'm going to pull out my Wendy Vecchi Make Art Station. This way I can kind of tack it down with those magnets. And I'm going to pull out some Simon Hurley Create Gur ink. It's a brown ink, along with a Blender Buddy, and I'm just going to blend that across the bottom. I kind of wanted these to be one layer, although they're not going to be, because obviously, as you noticed, I've cut out all of my little images. It's mostly a one layer card, which is kind of fun, and it makes these really, really simple to make. And I didn't blend out my lower part very well, but that I kind of wanted it that way. I wanted my seafloor to look like it had some variation to it. So I did that for all four. My next step is to pull out some Heffy tape so I can make a mask. And so all I'm going to do is hold that first snow stencil in place and then trace around it. And then I'll take my scissors and I'll fussy cut that out. Super simple to do. And this way I have a mask. I love the Heffy tape for that. It's a little bit wider than a lot of the tapes that are out there, and so I always have this stuff on hand. I'll tack that down over the top, and this way I can blend some blue ink above that. So I've pulled in some Remember Me ink and another Blender Buddy, and then I'm going to very lightly blend that up. So I start on my Heffy tape and blend up using a very light hand because I don't want it to be too dark. And then I'll do that for the other three. Now we have to score our card bases so that they're ready to become cards. So I'm scoring that at 5½ inches. This will be a top folding A2 size card. And now I'll start pulling out my little pieces to place those around and see how I want those. All of the layouts are going to be basically the same, all dependent upon which way the little critter is looking. Now we need to stamp our sentiment. So I've grabbed out a couple of sentiments and I'm just lining that up on a grid stamp block. And then I'll pull out some blackout ink and stamp that. I need it 4 times. So I've got Sending You and Of Love, because we're going to put oceans in between that. But I've stamped that out 4 times, trying to line it up as best I can so I can trim it down a little easier later. We have out some Oreo cardstock by Heffy Doodle, along with some Juicy Embossing ink. I'm going to use a magic powder bag over that Oreo cardstock so I don't get any powder sticking to places I don't want it to. And then I'll stamp out oceans 4 times. And then I'm going to cover that with some alabaster embossing powder. Next, we will heat set that till that is smooth and melted. So you'll know that it is smooth and melted when it goes from a matte finish to a shiny finish. Just kind of keep checking it in the light and you'll be able to tell. And it just brightens up a little bit too. I'll set that off to the side to kind of dry a little bit, cool down, and I'll trim out these sentiments. I'm just using my guillotine trimmer to do so. And then I'll trim out each one separately. So we'll have the Sending You and Of Love. And then I'll trim those down each separately, just using that guillotine trimmer. There is a matching die for the word oceans, which I love. And so I'm going to tack that down with a little bit of washi tape and run that through my mini die cutting machine 4 times, which is awesome. And then it's fun because then the word oceans will just, it'll be cut all around it just perfectly. So we'll do that 3 more times as well. Now we can start assembling. So I'm going to take some liquid glue for most of the pieces. So we'll tack down the Sending You and Of Love, just kind of placing our oceans kind of where I think it might go. I'm going to use foam tape on that. But all the little other pieces, other than the main image and our word, are going to be tacked down using some liquid glue. That one's going to stick off the edge. I like doing that sometimes because it does give the illusion that there's more going on outside of the card. We've just got little starfish, and they're all basically, like I said, basically the same layout, just a little different for some of them. We're going to use some of that Heffy foam tape, some foam strips on the back of our word and also on the back of our little critters, so that way they can be popped up. So this, like I said, isn't a 1-layer card. It's pretty close, but it isn't totally 1 layer. We'll peel off the release paper and then tack down our word, and also tack down our little narwhal. He's too cute. Too cute. And then I'm going to trim off the excess of that one little stone. And waste not, want not, we're going to glue it down to the other side. I need to do a little something to the inside, so I'm going to grab the matching sentiment that goes with our narwhal, which says, "You're a star wall." Is that not super cute and clever? So that'll get stamped on the inside, and I will grab the other narwhal image and glue that down too. For a final bit of embellishment, I'm grabbing some of my jelly roll. I've got the clear star. I'm just kind of putting that around, little dots of that. Some of them are variegated in size. They're just, some are big, some are small. And we're just pouncing that around. And then I'm going to grab my white number 8, and we'll put just a few little dots of that on our narwhal, and then we'll bring in the clear star on his horn. And then let me bring in all 4 so you can see how those turned out. Super easy, super simple, and super fun. I love these. So if you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button and consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. If you're looking for more card making inspiration, head back to my channel and check out all the cards that I have listed for you. There are lots. Thanks for all the love and support you guys give, and I will see you very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.